She was just trying to buy a doll. A black woman. A nurse. A mother who had worked 12 hours straight, who was running on cold coffee and sheer will, who had walked into the most expensive shopping mall in Chicago for exactly one reason: a birthday present for her little girl. 15 minutes. That was all it was supposed to take. But then her daughter stopped walking, and in a voice so small and so clear it could cut glass, she asked a question that 5 years of silence, 5 years of sacrifice, 5 years of a mother rebuilding her entire life from nothing could not survive. "Mommy, why does that scary man have my eyes?" She followed her daughter's gaze across the marble atrium. And there he was. Kang Hyun-jol, the most feared name in Chicago's Korean underworld. A man whose organization controlled millions. A man with a dragon tattooed on his neck and ice where most people keep their conscience. Surrounded by men in black, being bowed to by a mall manager who looked like he hadn't breathed since the moment this man walked through the door. And he was already looking up. Not at her, at the child. At the amber-green eyes that were identical to his. This black woman had carried this secret alone for 5 years. She had run, she had hidden, she had built an entire life, an apartment, a career, a daughter, on the foundation of one desperate decision made on a pavement outside his building on a cold Chicago night. And in 4 seconds, a 4-year-old girl destroyed all of it. But what happened next? What this man did when he finally understood what he had never known he was missing will change everything you think you know about power, about fear, and about what it truly means to protect someone you love. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and click join to become a member and help our channel. She had done this 1,000 times, told herself it was nothing, told herself the city was enormous, that Chicago swallowed people whole and kept their secrets better than any grave, told herself that 5 years was long enough for the past to become something that only lived inside her chest at 3 in the morning, when the apartment was quiet, and Seol-jae was breathing softly in the next room, and there was nothing left to distract her from what she had done. She had done this 1,000 times, and she had been right every single time. Until today. The Millennium Galleria was not the kind of place Jade Rivers visited. It was the kind of place she walked past on Michigan Avenue and looked at the way people look at something that belongs to another dimension. Aware of its existence, entirely removed from its reality. The ceilings were cathedral high. The floors were white marble that reflected everything, including the faces of people who did not belong there. She could feel it the moment she stepped inside, that subtle recalibration that expensive spaces perform on the human body. The way a room can make you suddenly conscious of every small imperfection in who you are and what you're wearing. But her jaqueta was red, and her bag matched, and her chin was up. Because Jade Rivers had not survived everything she had survived to be made small by a shopping mall. She had a mission. 2nd floor, East Corridor, the specialty import toy store that carried the hand-articulated Korean doll Seol-jae had watched in a YouTube video for approximately 47 consecutive viewings. 3 days until the birthday. 1 item on the list. 15 minutes, maximum. Seol-jae walked beside her with both hands wrapped around 2 of her fingers, her little bare backpack bouncing with each step, her light-up sneakers blinking pink against the white marble in a rhythm that almost sounded like a small heartbeat. She was looking at everything. She always looked at everything. That was the thing about her daughter that Jade loved most and feared most in equal measure, the way those amber-green eyes cataloged the world with a precision that belonged to someone much older, much larger, much harder to contain than a 4-year-old in a butterfly dress. The doll was purchased. The receipt was folded into the red bag. The exit was 11 steps away. And then Soljae stopped. Not the stop of a tired child or a distracted one. The stop of a child who has seen something that has organized itself, without her understanding why, into a category of profound importance. Jade felt it before she saw it. Felt the small hands tighten. Felt the shift in weight as her daughter leaned very slightly forward, the way she did when she was about to ask a question that she had already decided was important. She followed the line of her daughter's gaze, and the floor disappeared. He was standing in the central atrium below them, at the base of the curved staircase, surrounded by men who existed only to stand slightly behind him. He was speaking to the mall's general manager, who was nodding with the particular velocity of a man who would agree to anything. The charcoal suit sat on his shoulders the way expensive things sit on people who have stopped noticing that they own expensive things. The collar of the black silk shirt was open at the throat, and even from this distance, even across 20 meters of marble and light and the low ambient sound of a shopping mall on a Tuesday afternoon, she could see the dragon on his neck. She had traced that tattoo with her fingertips once, a long time ago, in a different life. In a life she had deliberately dismantled and left behind like a building she herself had burned. Her lungs forgot what they were for. She turned. She grabbed Soljae's shoulder gently. She said something. She would not be able to remember exactly what later. Something about leaving, about going, about the car being parked and them needing to. And then her daughter's voice cut through everything. Small, clear, devastating. "Mommy, why does that scary man have my eyes?" The question landed in the air between them and did not dissolve. It sat there, solid and irreversible, the way only the truth can sit when it has finally, after 5 years of silence and careful architecture and deliberate forgetting, decided that it is done waiting. Jade did not move, and from below, very slowly, Kang Hyun-jo looked up. There are moments in a life that do not feel like moments when they are happening. They feel like the end of something, like the last page of a book you did not know you were reading, turned by a hand that was never yours. Jade stood at the top of that curved staircase and understood, with a clarity that was almost physical, that everything she had built in 5 years, every careful decision, every deliberate silence, every morning she had woken up and chosen, again, to keep going without looking back, had just been dismantled by 11 words spoken in the clear, unhurried voice of a child who did not yet understand what secrets were for. He was still looking up. She had forgotten, somehow, in 5 years of forgetting, how he did that, how Kang Hyun-jo looked at something. There was no gradual focusing, no adjustment period, no moment of uncertainty. His eyes simply arrived at a thing and stayed there, completely, the way a door arrives at a wall when someone has kicked it open. There was no looking away from it. There was only the thing and his attention, and the absolute absence of anything between them. He was looking at Soljae, and Jade watched it happen, watched the precise moment it registered, not with shock, because shock implies unpreparedness, and there was something in his expression that was far more complicated than shock. It was the look of a man who had built an entire architecture of control over every room he had ever walked into, every conversation he had ever held, every outcome he had ever needed to manage. Watching that architecture mean absolutely nothing. His eyes moved from the child's face to Jade's. She did not run. She had thought, in abstract moments over the years, about what she would do if this ever happened. She had always assumed she would run. She had always assumed the instinct for survival would override everything else, that her body would simply make the decision before her mind could interfere. But her body did not run. Her body stood there, in a red leather jacket with a cherry bag and a child pressed against her side, and looked back at him across 20 meters of marble and irreversible history. One of his men leaned close and said something near his ear. He did not respond, did not look away, did not move. And then, with the particular economy of someone who has never needed to raise his voice to be obeyed, he said 2 words to the men beside him. The corridor to her left closed. The corridor to her right closed. Not violently, not with any visible drama that would disturb the other shoppers moving through the atrium below, the women with their bags, the couples, the ordinary Tuesday afternoon of a city that did not know and would never know what was happening in this specific pocket of its afternoon. It closed the way things close when the person doing the closing has had 20 years of practice making it look like nothing. She looked down at Soljae. Her daughter was still watching him with those eyes. His eyes. She had always known it. Had looked at them every single day for 4 years and known it, and told herself it did not matter. Told herself that eyes were just eyes, and a child was a child, and the past was the past. And there was no fear in them. That was the thing that broke something small and essential inside Jade's chest in that moment. There was no fear in her daughter's eyes because Soljae did not know yet what fear of him meant. She was simply looking at a man who had her eyes. She had noticed something true about the world, and she wanted to understand it. That was all. She was 4 years old, and the world was still a place where noticing true things was safe. Jade pulled her close. His voice reached them before he did. Low, controlled. A voice that had learned long ago that volume was for people who were not certain they would be listened to. Jade. Just her name. Nothing attached to it. No accusation, no threat, no inflection that she could defend herself against. Just the sound of him saying the word she had not heard from that particular mouth in 5 years, and the way it landed in her body like something that had never fully left. Don't. She turned around. He was at the base of the staircase now, one hand resting on the curved banister, looking up at her with an expression she did not have a word for, had never had a word for, even when she had known him well enough to have needed one. Don't run, he said. Not again. And Jade Rivers, who had run once before and rebuilt her entire life around the wisdom of that decision, stood completely still. Because somewhere, in the part of her that had never fully stopped being the woman she was before she became only a mother, she understood that he was not asking. And she also understood, which was worse, which was so much worse, that she had been waiting, without ever allowing herself to know it, for someone to finally say those words to her. Don't run. Not again. Soljae looked up at her mother, then back down at the man with her eyes. Mommy, she said quietly, with the devastating calm of a child who has already made up her mind about something. I think he is sad. The room they were taken to was on the 4th floor, behind a door that required a key card, and the particular silence of people who understood that certain conversations needed walls around them. It was a meeting room dressed as something more comfortable than it was. Low lighting, a long leather sofa against one wall, a glass table with water that nobody touched. The kind of room that expensive buildings keep for moments that cannot happen in public. Jade sat on the sofa with Soljae in her lap. Her daughter had, with the magnificent indifference of the very young, decided that the moment called for unpacking the new doll from its box, and was working at the cardboard flap with focused determination, while the two adults in the room carried the full weight of 5 years of silence between them. Hyunjo stood near the window. He had dismissed his men outside the door with a single gesture. Now there was only him and the room, and the woman he had not spoken to since she had vanished from his life without a word, without a note, without a single point of contact that he had not eventually exhausted trying to find her. And the child with his eyes and her mother's mouth, and both of their stubbornness written plainly across a face that was somehow, impossibly, already entirely her own. He did not look at Jade when he spoke first. He looked at Soljae. How old is she? It was not a question. The grammar of it was a question, but the weight of it was not. It was a man doing arithmetic he already knew the answer to, and needing to hear the numbers spoken aloud so that it would become real in the way that only spoken things become real. 4, Jade said. 4.5. The muscle in his jaw moved once. Her name. Soljae. The silence that followed that word was different from the silences before it. It had a texture to it. He turned his head very slightly away from her, toward the window, and she watched his profile and remembered, with a vividness she had spent 5 years training herself not to access, the night she had told him that her favorite day of the year was the first snowfall. How he had looked at her then. How he had said the word in Korean, soft and almost private, like it was something he was giving her rather than just saying to her. Sol. Snow. She had told herself, when she chose the name, that it was just a name, that it was just beautiful, that it meant nothing about what she had never been able to fully put down. You named her that, he said, still not looking at her. Yes. Why? The question cost him something. She could hear it. Because I couldn't name her after you, she said quietly. And I couldn't pretend you didn't exist. He turned then, and for a moment, only a moment, the length of a breath, the space between one heartbeat and the next, the face she saw was not the face of Kang Hyunju, was not Yomna, was not the man whose name made other men lower their eyes. It was the face of someone who had been handed something enormous and devastating, and had not yet found the ground beneath his feet. Then it closed again. But she had seen it, and she knew that he knew she had seen it. You were going to tell me, he said. That night, you came to the building. She had not known he knew that. 5 years, and she had not known he knew that. Yes, she said. What stopped you? She looked at Soljae, who had freed the doll from the box and was now introducing it to the glass of water on the table with quiet ceremony. I heard you, Jade said. Through the window. You were giving an order. About a child. She paused. Someone's child. Used as a message. The room held that sentence for a long moment. And you decided, he said slowly, that I was not someone who deserved to know. I decided, she said, and her voice did not waver, because she had made peace with this decision every day for 4 years, and she was not going to unsay it now. That she deserved to grow up outside of what that order meant, outside of a world where children are messages. He was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Not softer, exactly, but stripped of something. The way a room sounds different when you take the furniture out of it. I have spent 5 years, he said, building something that no one could touch, making myself into something that no one could reach. I was very good at it. He looked at the child. She walked into a shopping mall and destroyed it in 4 seconds. Despite everything, despite the fear still sitting at the base of her throat, and the knowledge of everything that lived in the world outside this room, Jade felt the corner of her mouth move. She does that, she said. She does it to me every single day. Soljae looked up at that moment, as if she understood she was being discussed, and found the whole matter slightly beneath her current priorities. Daddy, she said, with the absolute authority of a child who has decided something and sees no reason to be tentative about it, pointing the doll directly at Hyunjo. Sit down. You are too tall for this room. Jade stopped breathing. Hyunjo looked at the child for 3 full seconds. And then, slowly, carefully, like a man lowering himself into water he is not certain of, he sat down. It was Hyunjo's phone that broke the stillness first. Not a ringtone. He did not have ringtones. It vibrated once against the glass table with the particular urgency of a message that had been sent by someone who knew better than to call, and he looked at it with the expression of a man who already knows the content before he reads it. His face did not change, but his stillness changed. Became a different kind of stillness, the kind that precedes movement, the kind that has a direction already chosen inside it. He looked at Jade. Your address, he said. Do you still live on Wicker Park? The apartment on Evergreen. The cold that moved through her was immediate and complete. How do you know that? I always knew, he said, and there was no pride in it, no possession. Only the flat honesty of a man stating a fact he had lived with quietly for years. I never came. That was a choice I made. But I knew. She did not know what to do with that. She filed it somewhere she would have to return to later, when there was a later. Tell me what that message says, she said. He turned the phone and showed her. She read it once. Then again. The words did not rearrange themselves into something less than what they were. They know about the girl. They have the address. Soljae was still on the sofa, the doll now tucked under her arm, her eyes moving between the two adults with the quiet attentiveness of a child who understands that the temperature of a room has changed, even when she cannot name why. Mama, she said softly, are we okay? Jade looked at her daughter, at the amber-green eyes that had started everything today, that had cracked open 5 years of careful silence with one innocent question asked in a shopping mall on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. She thought about the apartment on Evergreen, the drawings on the refrigerator, the nightlight shaped like a moon that Soljae could not sleep without, the life she had assembled piece by piece out of the wreckage of a decision she had made standing on a pavement outside a building 5 years ago, listening to a voice through a window and choosing, right or wrong, to walk away. Yes, baby, she said. We are okay. She looked at Hyunjo when she said it, and the look said something entirely different. It said, fix this. Whatever you are, whatever this costs. Fix this. He was already on his feet. He made 3 calls in the next 4 minutes, standing near the window with his back partially to them, speaking in Korean that was too fast and too low for her to follow entirely, though she caught enough. A location, a name repeated twice with a particular weight behind it, and at the end of the 3rd call, a single sentence that she understood completely because he had taught it to her once, a long time ago, in a context she had never imagined would become relevant. It is handled. Do not touch them. When he turned back, the room was different. He was different. Or rather, he was the same, but the layer beneath the surface was closer to visible than she had ever seen it. The man who had built an empire on being unreachable was standing in a meeting room on the 4th floor of a shopping mall, looking at a woman and a child, and wearing the particular expression of someone who has just understood, with total and irreversible clarity, exactly what they are afraid to lose. "You'll come with me tonight," he said. "Both of you. It's not a request, Jade. I need you to understand that. Not because of what I am, because of what they will do if I leave you unprotected and they reach you before I reach them." She wanted to argue. She had built an entire identity out of not needing this, out of being the woman who walked away and handled it herself and did not ask for anything from anyone, least of all from him. But Sol-jae had already slid off the sofa and walked across the room and taken 2 of Hyunjo's fingers in her small fist, the way she did with Jade when she had decided a situation was resolved and it was time to move on to the next thing. "Okay," her daughter said simply. "Let's go." And Jade looked at her child, this small, extraordinary, amber-eyed person who had detonated 5 years of silence in 11 words, and was now leading the most dangerous man in Chicago toward the door by 2 fingers, completely unafraid, and felt something she had not allowed herself to feel in a very long time. Not love. She had never stopped that. Not relief. It was too early for relief. Something quieter than both. Something that felt terrifyingly like the first moment of putting down a weight you have carried so long you forgot it was separate from your body. 3 weeks later, on a Saturday, they were on the narrow balcony of the apartment on Evergreen with coffee going cold between them, and Hyunjo said something she had not expected. Not an apology, not a declaration. Something smaller and therefore larger than either. "I used to think," he said, looking at the street below, "that the most dangerous thing a person could have was something they were afraid to lose. I spent 20 years making sure I had nothing like that." She waited. "I was wrong," he said. "The most dangerous thing is having it and not knowing. Walking around with it unprotected because you don't know it exists." He paused. "She was always out there. My whole empire meant nothing, and she was always out there. And I didn't know." Jade looked at her coffee. "She was protected," she said quietly. "She was protected by you not knowing." "She was protected by you," he said. And it was not a concession. It was not generous. It was just true. And he said it the way he said true things, plainly, without decoration. "Everything she is. That was you. I know that." Inside the apartment, they could hear Sol-jae explaining something to her doll in a mixture of English and the 12 Korean words she had decided, in 3 weeks, were her favorites. Her voice was unhurried and certain, the voice of someone who has never doubted that what she has to say is worth saying. Jade looked at Hyunjo. He was already looking at her. Neither of them spoke for a while. The city moved below them, indifferent and enormous, keeping its secrets the way it always had, imperfectly, temporarily, until the wrong person asked the right question in the wrong place at exactly the right moment. "What happens now?" she said. Not a question exactly, more like a door held open. He considered it with the seriousness he gave everything. "I don't know," he said. And the fact that he said it, that Kang Hyun-jo, Yomna, the man who always knew, sat on a narrow balcony on Evergreen Avenue and admitted openly that he did not know, told her more than any answer could have. Inside, Sol J laughed at something the doll had apparently said. And on the balcony, very quietly, so did they.
The problem begins when confusion becomes your normal. When you no longer know whether you are being loved or simply being kept around. When you start normalizing signs that hurt, silence that drains you, and doubt that steals your peace. If that spoke to you, I left a path to help you recognize this pattern sooner, stop abandoning yourself, and trust yourself again. You can access it now through the QR code on the screen, the link in the description, or the pinned comment.
If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever made a decision to protect someone you love? A decision that looked like running, that looked like silence, that looked like a secret, but was really the only way you knew how to keep them safe? And have you ever carried that weight alone for so long that you forgot what it felt like to put it down? And if you have ever been the person who was kept out, who was denied something essential, not out of cruelty, but out of fear, were you able to find a way to forgive what you could finally understand? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about protection, redemption, and the kind of love that survives even the longest silence, leave a like. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and click Join to become a part of our community and help the channel.